Tyson Foods has announced the closure of 4 of its chicken plants.
Tyson Foods just announced the official closing of 4 of its chicken processing plants. One of them is in Corydon, Indiana.
Once, these streets were alive. Families built their lives around the promise of stable work, of security, of a future. But today, all that's left are empty buildings, broken dreams, and silence. Donald Trump promised to bring jobs back to America. He claimed that the higher the tariff, the more likely companies would build factories here in the United States. He repeated it again and again. The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory. But reality tells a different story. Tyson Foods, one of America's largest meat producers, shut down multiple U.S. processing plants. Entire towns were blindsided. Hundreds of workers were abandoned overnight. Families left with no income, no future. Workers who had given years of their lives to Tyson were left with nothing. No severance, no gratitude, not even a handshake. Behind closed doors, Tyson had a plan, a cold, calculated plan, not driven by market dynamics or declining demand, as they publicly claimed, but by one simple motive: cheap labor, outsourcing jobs to Brazil, Thailand, Malaysia, chasing profits overseas while gutting the very communities they once sustained. Even as they shut down American plants, Tyson was expanding aggressively overseas. New plants rose in foreign lands where wages are lower, environmental regulations are weaker, and profits are higher. And while American workers were tossed aside, Tyson's executives thrived. Millions in bonuses, millions in taxpayer subsidies, American tax dollars funding their betrayal. And where was Donald Trump during all of this? Right here, smiling, celebrating, claiming his tariffs were bringing companies back, even as companies like Tyson were fleeing the country. Trump stood on stage, boasting about his tariffs. He bragged about how foreign leaders begged to meet with him. But while he gloated, real American families were suffering. His tariffs did not bring jobs back. They made American manufacturing more expensive. Steel prices soared, machinery costs spiked, fuel prices increased. Every input for manufacturing became more costly. For companies like Tyson, Trump's tariffs didn't lure them home. They pushed them out, and American workers paid the price. Between 2018 and 2020, Trump-era tariffs eliminated nearly 75,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs. That is not winning. That is not bringing jobs back. That is losing American livelihoods. And the pain is real. Workers who once believed in Trump, who trusted him, who thought he was fighting for them, were betrayed. One worker, a single father named Marlin, stood outside his shuttered plant, holding the letter that informed him his job was ending in 30 days. He choked back tears as he said, "They didn't even say thank you, not even a handshake. These are real people, real families, real heartbreak." And Trump offered no sympathy, no comfort, only more self-congratulation. This is not just about Tyson. This is about a system where corporations profit, politicians lie, and American workers are left behind. It is a betrayal, a con, a cruel game where those in power win and everyone else loses. Trump said he was for the working class, but in the end, he was never for them. He was for himself. Tyson's betrayal was not a sudden surprise. An internal memo, leaked by a courageous employee, exposed the truth. The memo, dated August 1st, 2023, referred to the plant closures as long-term margin optimization via labor cost exit. In plain language, that means cutting American jobs to chase cheaper labor overseas. Even more disturbing, the document outlined a 3-year plan to shift 15 to 20% of poultry production to international low-cost zones. Brazil, Thailand, and Malaysia were listed as priority expansions. So while Tyson publicly claimed they had no choice, behind the scenes, they were plotting to abandon American workers all along. And all the while, they continued to receive millions in U.S. taxpayer subsidies through agricultural assistance programs. American families, already struggling, were essentially funding their own unemployment. The executives thrived. Tyson CEO Donnie King earned over $12 million in total compensation in 2022. Bonuses for senior leadership continued to climb in 2023, even as factories were shuttered and hourly employees were discarded with minimal severance. Corporate greed reached its peak, while working-class Americans were tossed aside like yesterday's trash. Trump's rhetoric may be loud, but his actions speak louder. When companies like Tyson offshored jobs, Trump did not fight for the workers. Instead, he doubled down on his misguided policies and celebrated imaginary victories. He boasted that foreign leaders were afraid of him, that they came running to the negotiating table. But while he played strongman on the world stage, he abandoned the very people he promised to protect. His supporters cheered, filled with hope, believing that he was bringing jobs back. But the reality was far more painful. The very people who believed in him the most were the ones hurt the most. Immigrant workers in Arkansas, low-income families in Indiana, entire towns built around Tyson plants were left with nothing. The North Little Rock plant employed more than 300 people, many of them immigrant workers without high school diplomas, earning between $13 and $17 an hour. For them, Tyson was everything. There were no other jobs waiting, no retraining programs, no safety net, just a letter ending their livelihoods. And while workers like Marlin and Rosa faced an uncertain future, Tyson's leadership celebrated record profits and expanding global operations. Trump claims to be a champion of the American worker, but his policies tell a different story. His tariffs, instead of pressuring foreign companies to invest in America, often resulted in higher prices for U.S. manufacturers, making it harder to compete globally. Tyson, a domestic company, wasn't pushed to expand in America. It was pushed out. The Peterson Institute for International Economics reported that Trump-era tariffs reduced U.S. manufacturing employment by nearly 75,000 jobs. Consumer costs also rose across the board, yet Trump continues to repeat the same lies. He tells his base what they want to hear, that he is fighting for them, that companies fear him, that he is bringing jobs back. But the facts tell a very different story. Instead of accepting responsibility, Trump shifts the blame. He points fingers at immigrants, globalists, China, Democrats, anyone but the corporations making these decisions. This strategy works because it distracts his supporters from the truth. It allows him to continue the con while American families suffer. Even after the closures, Tyson had the audacity to release advertisements boasting about their Made in America commitment. Glossy videos showed smiling workers in hard hats, American flags waving. But nowhere did they mention the hundreds of workers laid off. Nowhere did they mention the factories they shuttered. Nowhere did they mention the communities they devastated. This isn't patriotism. This is propaganda, a calculated deception to cover up the truth. Tyson isn't staying in America. They're running from it. And Trump either doesn't understand that, or worse, doesn't care. Every time Trump steps on stage and claims victory, remember Marlin holding his termination letter. Remember Rosa, uncertain of how to feed her children. Remember the empty parking lots and shuttered factories. Remember the towns hollowed out by corporate greed and political lies. Trump's betrayal goes beyond broken promises. It exposes a deeper, more disturbing truth about how power operates in America. The politicians smile, make grand promises, and claim to fight for the people. But behind the scenes, they serve the interests of the wealthy and powerful. Corporations like Tyson enrich their executives while gutting American communities. Politicians like Trump offer empty words while enabling these betrayals. And the American worker is left holding the pieces, struggling to survive, hoping for change, hoping for leaders who will finally put them first. This is not just a Tyson problem. This is a systemic problem, a betrayal of American workers by both corporations and politicians. It is a painful reminder that words are cheap, but actions reveal the truth. Trump promised to bring jobs back. Instead, he delivered higher costs, fewer jobs, and more suffering. And as long as we allow ourselves to be distracted by his theatrics, the cycle will continue. More factories will close. More communities will be destroyed. More families will be left behind.